when you start talking about the standard at Oakmont Country Club, it dates back to the club's inception in 1903 when our founder, Henry Phones, started this club. He decided he wanted to build a golf course, and not just that, but he wanted to build the most challenging golf course on earth and one that could host championships in perpetuity. Oakmont hosted its first U.S. Open in 1927. Flash forward almost 100 years to this year. This will be our 10th U.S. Open. So Oakmont's hosted more U.S. Opens and championships in general than any other club in the country. So like that in itself is like the first part of the standard.
I mean, we're in it together. The early mornings, yeah, they suck. It's long, it's hard. But in the end, like showing off what we do, what we love, it's always on display, especially for the membership. I mean, with the U.S. Open coming, that's another thing. But like every single day is, to us, like the U.S. Open. We take care of the golf course like the U.S. Open day in and day out. The standard doesn't change.
Oh, the Oakmont Standard is, the simplest terms is excellence. Is bringing your best every day. Giving what you got all day long, you know, going home, taking care of yourself, coming back the next day even better. It's the continuous learning experience, making yourself better and better each day, day in, day out.
I think the second part of the standard is our membership and their expectation that we have championship conditions on a daily basis. I think the last part of the standard is the legacy of the club. And, you know, when you get to wear this logo, the OCC logo, every single day, like there's something about that I think everyone on our team embraces in a major way. Everyone realizes, like, you know, you're playing for the Yankees here. You're one of the most historic operations within our industry, and we don't take that lightly. So this morning, again, 8 o'clock shotgun. We are going to mow fairways, clean up approaches. Let's use the turf trainers on today. We're double hand cutting greens and then single rolling greens behind that, turbining fairways and touching up bunkers. Okay? Second assignment today, we're gonna fly mow bunkers, come off the end of this shotgun, work through the gap, try to finish that up. Mow rough today, top dress greens, do some spraying on the range, 216, and some miscellaneous stuff. All right? Typical day at Oakmont, like we start the night before. So like last night we had guys here all day from 4:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night. We did some PM maintenance yesterday behind member play, knowing that we have a double shotgun today. So we have, I think, 80 players going off at 8 a.m. and then another like 80 players going off at 1:30. I think what makes our business so exciting is that everything is always changing. No day is the same, yet the standard is always the same. Especially as you lead up to a U.S. Open, it's all about like practicing the fundamentals and doing the fundamentals as close to perfection as you possibly can. We bring in guys from all over the country. It's a really unique team here. We have roughly 30 guys, or we will have 30 guys this year that either have already obtained turf management degrees or are working on obtaining turf management degrees.
I studied at Penn State, so I just finished my degree last year, and you wanted to work for a big course, and US Open was coming, and I met Mike a few years back, so I decided to come and join him here.
You know, we typically peak out around 45 guys, like peak season, once everyone comes back from school. And You know, the guys who don't have turf degrees, like, they're also super educated, very motivated, dedicated people who take a lot of pride in their work. We have guys here like, you know, Stevie Bynack, he's been here, this is his 48th season, he's done 9 championships, so come championship time, everything gets ramped up, right? Starting Thursday and Friday of the championship, they'll be teeing players off 1 and 10 at 6:45 in the morning, so we have to get all the playing surfaces cut, 200 bunkers, hand rake, and be off the golf course basically by the time they go out and play. Starting advanced week, the week before the championship, we'll bring in 60 volunteers. And then for championship week itself, we'll bring in about 150 volunteers to help our team out prepare the golf course. Everyone on our team, like, this is way more than just a job for them. It's more than like a means to put food on the table. We eat, sleep, and breathe it. And when you take, you know, 45 guys with that same passion, that ultimately sets a standard within our operation and allows us to produce conditions that we produce on course each and every day.
Oakmont's one of a kind. Oakmont was the only club that Henry Phones ever built. I think his son, WC, was really instrumental in the development and evolution of Oakmont. The Phones family was here from 1903 until the 1940s. It's really the only course like it, you know. Oakmont was the one and only Henry Phones design, and it's really stood the test of time. It's pretty incredible. It's a really unique combination of like aesthetic beauty and also just so challenging, which is Oakmont in a nutshell. Like, Oakmont's a sight to behold from an aesthetic perspective, but you come out here and play golf and you might not feel the same warm and fuzzy feeling.
So the church views, you know, there's a lot of iconic things about Oakmont, but the church views is something that, you know, I think anyone who knows anything about golf could probably recognize the church views and know that they're here at Oakmont Country Club. You know, the church views originally, like way back when the club was founded, were a series of long, skinny bunkers. And then sometime in the 20s, they kind of connected the outsides of that feature to turn them into the church views. And they've gone through several iterations over the history of Oakmont. During this last restoration, we actually added about 15 yards to them and another pew, because back in 16, guys were able to hit their drives over them. So that won't be the case for this championship. And we really returned them to, you know, how they looked during the Phones era as well, where there's some variation in elevation of the church views. You might land in the sand and, you know, have a big mound in front of you. You might have a more shallow mound in front of you. You know, from a maintenance perspective, typically for the membership, we try to maintain those, you know, pretty thin, wispy, so you can easily find and play your golf ball. For the championship, they'll be a little bit denser this year, but it's a big bunker, you know, and it's especially when you're hand raking it for the championship, you know, that's going to take 4 or 5 guys, probably 45 minutes to rake that entire thing.
Normally we roll every day. You know? That could be 1 roll, it could be 2 rolls, it could be 6 rolls, depending on the event. It really tightens up the plant. These greens have evolved and just love getting rolled. So you get into like certain environmental patterns where grass is kind of puffy. It really helps smooth it out, tighten up the plant. You get a lot better cuts afterwards. And then, you know, the obvious reason is firm and fast greens, playability.
So a lot of it's the USGA, and we actually went out and we put flags in all the old US Open hole locations, all the new hole locations that we've found over the restoration and all the new greens. So they'll pick out 6 or 7 hole locations that they could possibly use throughout the week, depending on weather depending on anything, they can move those around on a daily basis. So.
And what does that look like? What makes a pin difficult?
It could be any number of things, like the undulations around the holes. One, it depends on how fast our greens are rolling. Different spots will be harder depending on how fast they are. Obviously, if you tuck them behind bunkers, maybe harder to get at as your second shot. That can be a tough pin. I'm a personal fan of just having a fun putt. I love putting on greens. It's like one of my favorite parts of golf. So if I can have a putt that maybe a double breaker or breaks one way, kind of try to find those spots and let them have some fun.
That is what we want. Oakmont's known for a few things as it relates to championships. One is the speed and firmness of the greens. Two is how we present the rough for championships. Still got to go up quite a bit. The last two championships in 2007 and 2016, we had a graduated cut. So we had our fairway surface, 6 feet of intermediate cut at roughly 1 inch. And then in those championships, we had roughly, call it 20 to 25 feet of graduated cut outside the intermediates that was cut at roughly, call it 3 to 3.5 inches. Then outside of that was 5 inches plus. Plans right now for the championship is to go right from that intermediate cut at, it's going to be a little higher, 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches. That will go right transition into 5 inches, and that 5 inches will be uniform throughout the entire golf course. Ball starting to nestle down here. Grass will get more and more upright here over the next, call it, month here, leading into the championship. I think a lot of people in the golf world, they think of a U.S. Open, they know, courses that do have rough, that the rough is going to be presented in a very penal manner. But I think a lot of people think we just stop mowing the rough, right? And that couldn't be further from the truth, where if you were to just go out and mow the rough at 2.25 inches, then let it grow up to 5, all that rough would just lay over itself and the ball would ultimately sit on top. By incrementally increasing the height, we're trying to get the grass to stand straight up. Our rough units have suction within the rotary deck. It stands the turf up as it's cutting it, so that ultimately leads to upright growth, and that's how we get the ball to kind of nestle right down in there and make it as penal as possible. So this is the approach surface. So this is cut at right about 0.2 inches, and then it's in the fairway surface right here that's cut at about 0.3 inches. So our approaches are very tight. Kind of there's many instances throughout the golf course where the approaches slope away from the green. So, if you're a player playing in the U.S. Open and you can't control your spin, you come up a little short, you might find yourself 30, 40 yards back in the fairway.